Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 5 questions in about 10 minutes, and I am excited to welcome Anwar Jumabhoy, and he is all the way from Malaysia, and we are very grateful that he was willing to get up early in the morning for him. At the time of recording, it's an afternoon from where I'm at. But Anwar is a professional speaker and coach, and his company is 21cc Education. And once again, they're out of Malaysia. Anwar, thank you so much for joining us today, especially at an early hour. What would you like the audience to know about you and what you do?
Basically, Sean, thanks for having me. I talk about change. I talk about how you can adapt to disruption. And I talk about the new ways of learning, working, and earning, and how that impacts both people and companies.
Fantastic. Well, let's get started with our questions. I'm excited to hear what you have to say about these 5 questions that we always like to talk about. So let's get started. Question number 1, can you share an example of collaboration within a team that you've experienced?
I think what probably comes to mind is, working with a budget hotel group, Tune, that I worked in. And we had an issue with customer service, right? So in companies, you always have this pressure, right? You have the pressure for saving money, for costs, and then of course the ops guys, people like me and people that bring in revenue. Our job is really to make sure that the customer is happy, so that he's willing to pay more and come back. It wasn't happening, right? So we were so focused on costs that we forgot about the customer experience, and managers felt that their role was just save money. And so we had to undo this whole thinking and say, okay, let's look at how we examine the customer experience. And the customer experience in a hotel is, the check-in, the bed, the shower, right? So we had great hardware, but then we skimped on the software, right? So we skimped on the amount of time we spent on the guests. We skimped on the amount of money that we paid to get the room cleaned. We skimped on the towels. We skimped on the toiletries. And so we had to really sit down with everybody and say, look, guys, why are we here? And that change, plus putting some money behind it, allowed us to improve the guest experience. And of course, that improved the room rates, and then the room rates improved revenue. So, because some companies get into the wrong direction. And so that's something that, we all have to learn.
That's a great example. Thank you for sharing that, because it really is important to get together and refocus sometimes on what direction you're trying to go. I love that answer. Thank you. Question number 2, I hear from other leaders of teams that it can be a challenge to measure engagement. Tell us your thoughts.
I think probably that's the wrong question. What's the purpose of engagement, right? Do you engage with your kids, with your spouse, with your partner? Engagement is transactional. I think what you need to do is get below that and have respect. So I have three simple steps for getting results, right? Results with an R, you need to recognize who does the job, recognize what they need. Second is you need to respect them. So respect them by giving them the space, the resources. We talked about the Tune Hotel earlier. And the third is reward. Reward them either through recognition, through a better role, etc. So 3 R's for results. It's not about engagement, right? The other thing that happens is that in a company, you need people to perform. I mean, the company has to make money, right? It doesn't matter that everybody loves the company. That's great. But if everybody loves the company and they do a better job, that's fine. But too often HR gets focused on everybody loving the company. But who's going to bring in the money? So, you need to tie it into results.
Very good. I like that response. Thank you. I appreciate the 3 R's of getting results. That's a great concept. Question number 3, based on your experience, Anwar, what is one quality of a confident leader?
Yeah, I was a bit puzzled about this. I didn't quite understand why confidence got into it, but I think that respect is always at the base, right? So leaders need to have many qualities. But the fundamental function of a leader is to get people to follow them. Now, you can do that by being a dictator. So they follow you out of fear, or they follow you out of respect. And I think people following other people out of respect is where you want to be as a leader.
Very good. I like that response. Question number 4. And this is a kind of a fun question. The last 2 are always kind of fun. Is there someone that you'd like to recognize that has made an impact in your life?
It was probably my second boss, right? So I worked in a shipyard in Singapore after having worked in a shipyard in the UK. And my second boss was a wonderful person because he just loved what he was doing. And he transformed that whole experience of working. We now talk about passion, but 40 years ago when I started working, it wasn't such a big word. Entrepreneurship wasn't a word that existed, right? But he taught me that if you really love what you're doing, you will become good at it. And you won't even need to have a memory because you won't have to remember anything. It will just come to you. And so I thought that was really good. So love what you're doing. The second thing that he taught me was know when you need to make a decision. Too many people rush to make a decision without really understanding when is the decision required. So I think these 2 things, my boss taught me, and his name was Yik, and really great guy.
I like that. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for recognizing him about learning about passion and then also letting that just be a part of who you are. I think that's great. All right, our last question. Tell us a little bit about your first job.
Oh, my first job was, in a spanking shipyard. I just graduated. I worked in the shipyard in the UK. It was this all bells and whistles, everybody was protected by the union. You had to join a union. So there was a plumbers union, electrician union, and everybody had a union. And it was a wonderful world because your union took care of you. But who took care of the shipyard? Nobody. And therefore, what happened was that over a period of time, in fact, I left after a year, the shipyard closed down in 8 years because everybody was so busy protecting their own job. People forgot why they existed. And this silo thing, you see it repeated often in companies, of course, not with such dramatic results, but you do see the silo problem in a lot of companies.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's a good point about sometimes getting so locked into our own position, our own silo, to use your word, that it can actually have a detrimental effect if we're not careful. Great observation. Well, Anwar, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Really appreciate you making the effort to be on. How can people get a hold of you?
Sean, the best way is my website, which is my name, anwarjumabhoy.com. Or alternatively, I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so you can reach out to me there.
Fantastic. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. This is where our leaders share their insights. And for more information, we encourage you to go to teamengagementpodcast.com. We also encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel or to follow the audio version wherever you may be listening to it. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.